Chris
She's
is calling
hot.
from Australia. Chris is a theist who says his Mesopotamian God can save us from Trump and his war on truth. Chris, man, if this is a joke, just get to it quick.
I thought I was going to get a response like that. No, I'm very serious about this one. So I appreciate the time. It's a little bit of a clickbait.
You have a God. You have a God that you refer to as a Mesopotamian God.
Yeah, one specifically. Yeah.
Which one?
Name is Shamash.
Shamash. I've seen
Shamash,
Buffy.
Shamash.
Shamash is referenced on Buffy, I remember.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yes. Xander's penis got diseases from the Shamash tribe.
Oh, there you go.
So how do you know this God is, well, let me ask, is this God real and does it exist?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I can't make the claim that a God exists that I can't demonstrate. So that's the first.
Okay,
that's the first step. Now,
Chris, can non-existent things save us from Trump and his war on truth?
Yes, because non-existent things like that are not tangible, like things like truth, for example, I think can.
Yes, but you're advocating for a God that you do not have any way of knowing exists. So if your God doesn't exist, can it still save us from Trump?
The principles of the God can definitely save us from Trump.
Are the principles in any way tied to the existence of the God?
I think the success of the philosophical framework is tied to the belief in the God being necessary.
No. So you've now conflated things and backtracked all in one sentence. Is the existence of a God required for its effectiveness, or merely belief in the existence of the God, or merely belief in the effectiveness of the God?
It's a bit of a tricky one to understand. I mean, maybe we'll get there if you give me some time, but I think ultimately it's a pragmatic framework that relies on the belief in it, but doesn't necessarily, because I know you've got a problem, like I've heard a lot of your calls before, and you've got a problem with sort of pragmatic beliefs, especially if they're spreading falsehoods, which I don't think that my framework does.
Does your framework depend on acknowledging the existence of a God that you can't demonstrate?
I think the success of it relies on the God, yes, but not the existence of the God, if that makes sense. Did I make sense there? Not sure.
Okay. I guarantee you this is going to go badly, but what is it that you think your God can do?
So basically, I think that by following this framework, or what the framework is supposed to do, is if I could sort of encapsulate it in a couple of sentences, it would kind of be like the way that the scientific method functions, but as a religion. So essentially, it's kind of like a religious method that removes kind of dogmatic framework or dogmatic ideas that are central to pretty much all of the major religions. So there is no central authority. There is no dogmatic ideal of you must do this. There are no commands. There are principles. So Shamash was obviously a Mesopotamian god that was worshipped in the way that the Sumerians did. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is what the god represented. So what the god represented was truth, morality, and justice. So
we're stopping, Chris.
Yep.
So the answers to my question before were that the existence of Shamash is irrelevant, and what is relevant are the principles and people accepting and following those principles. So why did you call in to say that your Mesopotamian God can save us from Trump and his war on truth, and then dance around the questions when in reality, the Mesopotamian God is completely irrelevant And you instead have values that if you think you can get people to accept them, that will save us from Trump and his war on truth.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, but I think that you don't really get
Chris, you don't get to say you would agree with that. You called in and said, my Mesopotamian God can save us from Trump. But in reality, all you called in to say is, if people gave more of a shit about truth, that would save us from Trump and his war on truth.
Yes, I agree with that.
Do you think this is fucking clever? Do you think it's clever to call in and talk about an irrelevant God and then present a tautology that if people cared more about truth, we would care more about truth? You can't be this silly.
No, I think maybe you're misunderstanding what I'm actually saying. Like I'm saying.
Well, yes, it must be my fault. What am I misunderstanding then?
I agree with what you're saying, that essentially the principles are what I'm advocating for, not necessarily the God. However, I believe that if this was to be adopted or if this was to be accepted by people, that people historically don't really band behind kind of abstract concepts. This is why I think like as much of like humanism as I support the ideals of humanism. I think it lacks a cultural weight, a kind of I guess a human, like a story or something like that I think people crave for. You get calls like this all the time of people who are deconstructing and they feel like there's a void.
Chris, if you're going to suggest that I've misunderstood something, and then all you're going to do is say that the existence of the God isn't relevant and that it's about getting people to adopt or accept certain principles, what did I misunderstand?
Well, if no one's going to adopt or accept the principles, then the God, that's the function of the God. Like the God has a utility. So I'm saying that
you're arguing that one of the ways to get people to value honesty is to be dishonest and suggest that there's a God that wants them to be honest.
No, I didn't. I never said that there was a God that wants you to be dishonest. When did I say that?
I didn't say you wanted a God to want you to be dishonest. I said that you're advocating that getting people to adopt a principle of honesty, you are going to use a dishonest tactic to create a narrative of a Mesopotamian God to use as the narrative to inspire honesty.
It's not dishonest because I agree.
Yes,
with,
it is.
I believe.
No, it's dishonest. It's dishonest, and you're now lying to yourself right on live TV while you lie to everybody else. It's fine to promote principles, but it's absolutely ridiculous for you to promote the principle of honesty by suggesting that there's a Mesopotamian God of honesty.
I didn't say there is a Mesopotamian God of honesty.
Correct. And because you think that you can literally go word for word and say you didn't say word for word that, and that changes what you actually presented, makes this a big fucking waste of everybody's time. Because you are focused on how you literally did not use those words. But in fact, as I've pointed out twice, the existence of the God does not matter. It's the principles that matter. And your complaint is that throughout history, people have not adopted these abstract concepts without a story to go with it. So you are, as an effective matter, going to use a God, whether it exists or not, to create a narrative story to hope that more people grasp and adhere to a principle of honesty. Correct?
I guess you're correct, but I don't.
You guess I'm correct. So I did fucking understand it, and it is dishonest. Goodbye.
So I know that's completely irrelevant, everything he's saying, but here's the thing I don't get. If he was even remotely serious, which I don't think he was. So he's suggesting that we get everybody to adopt a new religion that has the principles of honesty and integrity and whatever. Meanwhile, don't 90% of politicians in America adhere to Christianity And I know there's a lot of problems with Christianity, but don't they also say that Christianity stands for all of these great things, such as empathy and feeding the poor and all that? So they already have a religion and a God that says these things, and they don't follow them. How would getting them to believe a new God that has the same ideals change their? I guess I'm missing what. Maybe I missed something.
It's hard enough to get people to follow a new God anyway. I'm amazed that Mormonism, as especially stupid as it is, it's such an obvious invented fiction. That Mormonism and Scientology are the two dumbest and the two most recent major world religions. I think it's telling that we now have the dumbest administration with all of the dumbest, appointees to various positions. There are a couple of exceptions, but if they're not dumb, they're dishonest. I'm looking at you, Marco, little Marco, who's definitely qualified for his position, but has sacrificed all of his integrity. Everything he ever said in opposition to Trump, he threw out the window so he could be Secretary of State. Wipe your chin there, Marco. While you're down there, little Marco, wipe your chin. Get that poop off your nose. But
yeah, I mean,
it's the notion of, hey, we need people to care more about honesty. Oh, well, they should just care more about honesty. Yeah, but they don't. Well, but they should, and I want them to. Okay, how can we get them to care about honesty? Okay, let's put a story around it, because that's cool. And there's a Mesopotamian god that he's about honesty and integrity, and I think we could use that. And if we got people to care about that. Oh, so you're wanting people who are either of no religion or who are of a different religion to convert to your brand new, invented today on the hang up religion about a Mesopotamian god. And one of the core tenets is, doesn't matter whether or not that God is real. We're focused on that God's values. This is why the world's falling apart, because we come up with incredibly stupid ideas and think we're brilliant. It's literally a tautology. If we could get people to care about honesty, that's how you counter Trump's dishonesty, is by getting people to care about honesty again. Well, congratulations.
Hey,
woohoo.
That's quite brilliant. So you're saying,
you know what we got to do? I got a solution.
Honest?
I got a solution. I can solve every sexual assault problem in the world. All we got to do is get people to start caring about consent.
Hey, that's a really good idea.
I mean, can we find a god somewhere out there who's primary, like maybe an advocate for like Jainism or something, where you're extreme pacifism? You would think that a religion like that would value consent. Maybe we could just get everybody to convert to the one that values consent the most, and now there's no more sexual assault.
That's a really good idea. And how do we, and it should be really easy to get everybody, especially in America, to convert from their Christian beliefs. It should be really easy to, especially if we make something that's, possibly an Eastern religion or something from that doesn't have a whitewashed history to it. That would be really easy.
Hey there, Eric. Noting that anyone watching that clip makes atrociously poor life decisions, where should they send their protection money to prevent further damage?
All protection money should be sent to patreon.com/calltheline, or else we will break your kneecaps.
Okay, we can't say that. I think we can't say that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hit like and subscribe.